Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime News on TV1. For the News First team, I'm Dithmini De Silva. Let's start off with a look at the headlines.
Protests across Sri Lanka demanding justice for the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks. No faith in country's leadership in securing justice for Easter attack victims, says His Eminence the Cardinal. Mahintala Ethero extends proposal to the President on declaring education as essential service. Srilankanbeauty to reach Colombo. Sudan's RSF announces 72-hour ceasefire amid Khartoum fighting.
In today's top story, a special memorial took place at the Sinanthani Shrine, Kochikade, to mark 4 years since the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks.
The special memorial to mark 4 years since the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks was organised to demand justice for the victims. His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, the Archbishop of Colombo, religious leaders and diplomats, among others, were present for this special memorial.
Kochikade Santantoni Siddhasa
ආගමික ත්‍රස්තවාදය අංගමික අන්තවාදයේ නැමැති
Selfish politicians who are greedy for power led the vehicle known as religious terrorism and religious extremism. It has come to a point where there is no one responsible for the accident that vehicle caused. The primary duty of a leader is to ensure security in the country. In the absence of that, such a disaster took place. Sri Lanka is probably the only country in the world with massive levels of corruption and with rulers who fail to perform their duties. Sri Lanka is the only country where public property is looted in the open. The latest in this can be witnessed from the Express Pearl issue. In addition, Sri Lanka is the only country where there is a group of religious leaders who invoke the blessings on the political leaders who commit all these malpractices. At the same time, Sri Lanka is the only country with a population that stays silent in the face of all this. We call this country the Buddhist country. But if we cannot see justice and if we cannot see the Dhamma, we should go international. I invite His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit and others who are demanding justice to take this case to the international stage.
යමු ජාත්‍යන්තරයට යුක්තිය සහ ධර්මය ඉල්ලගෙන
Although on the surface it looks like Islamic extremists carried out these attacks, the Parliament Select Committee report clearly states that a political conspiracy was behind it. At the same time, former Attorney General Dappula de Oliveira on the 17th of May 2021, in an interview with News First, Zulfiq Farzan made a statement, and instead of making him a witness, they are trying to make an accused and inconvenience him. It is clear that the police and the security forces are doing so to cover up the inability to trace the real perpetrators. What they should do is to peruse the 130-page report given by him to the Inspector General of Police and investigate the content. Certain individuals have been convicted by the Supreme Court. The Attorney General's Department, the police, are lethargic in implementing the recommendations of the Presidential Commission. We are also disappointed about the government that follows the same lethargic process, despite shedding crocodile tears. We are concerned whether the present President and the Minister of Public Security, stating that they are ready for an honest engagement with the Catholic Church, was to do to protect the double standards. Furthermore, we cannot have any form of faith on the present leadership of this country that want a dictatorship and brushes away the mandate of the people. We appeal to God to listen to our prayers and to show us exactly what took place on that Easter Sunday. We appeal for blessings so that this unitary state we have cannot be defeated by anyone. Likewise, we will be watching until justice is served.
සියල්ලන්ට අපි දැනුම් දෙන්නේ යුක්තිය ඉටවනතුරු අපි අවදියෙන් ඉන්නවා කියලයි.
The Holy See condemns terrorism in the strongest term and recalls that terrorism can only be countered by more cohesive measures at the international level. As terror knows no border, the international community as a whole must deny terrorists access to cyber technologies to recruit new adherents from different parts of the world or finance their activities and coordinate terror attacks. No one should be allowed to finance or to provide arms and ammunition. The tragic event of that fateful morning 4 years ago, which caused death and great suffering, is still fresh in the minds of the people, and particularly of the directly affected. We grieve that the truth behind it is still evading us. The commemoration ceremonies are definitely not to seek revenge, but to pray and seek justice for the innocent victims. At the same time, we recall that such contemptible acts go against the teachings of the 4 major religions practiced in this beautiful island, and which unreservedly condemned the act. I earnestly appeal that we continue to pray for the victims, the martyrs of the attacks, that they remain in the presence of God. In the book of Wisdom, we read that the souls of the righteous are in the hand of God, and no torment will ever touch them. At the same time, we also implore them to intercede for us, knowing that the blood of martyrs is the seed for the growth of the church. As we renew our commitment to never let such atrocities happen again, I wish to conclude in the words of the 44th President of the United States of America, Mr. Barack Obama. He said, "No religion is responsible for terrorism. People are responsible for violence and terrorism." I bring to all the affected and all Sri Lankans the blessings of the Holy Father, Pope Francis.
Sri Lankans formed a human chain on Friday morning from St. Anthony's Shrine, Kochikade, to St. Sebastian's Church, Katuapitiya, asking for truth and justice for the victims of the 2019 Easter bombings. Participants observed 2 minutes of silence at 8:45 a.m. to remember those who lost their lives and were affected by the terror attacks. Religious leaders, diplomats, victims and their families joined the commemoration that took place at St. Anthony's Shrine, Kochikade. The families of victims of the 2019 Easter attacks attended a service on Thursday night at St. Sebastian's Church, Katuapitiya, seeking justice, and thereafter walked to St. Anthony's Shrine, Kochikade. The walk was organized in search of the truth and justice. The group walked from Thursday night to Friday morning and were welcomed by fellow Sri Lankans with refreshments along their route.
The peaceful walk reached St. Anthony Shrine, Kochikade at 8:15 a.m.
A series of events to remember the lives lost in the 2019 April attacks as well as those who were injured took place across the country. A memorial took place at St. Sebastian's Church in Katua Pitia on Friday the 21st to remember the victims of the Easter Sunday terror attacks. Auxiliary Bishop of Colombo, Reverend Dr. J.D. Anthony Jayakori led the morning mass. Bells were tolled and candles were lit in memory of the victims of the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks at the Shrine of Christ the Healer in Waligama. Reverend Father Charles Hewa Vasam, the administrator of the Shrine of Christ the Healer in Waligama, flanked by other religious leaders, attended the memorial. A memorial mass also took place at the Church of Our Lady of Sorrows in Walana, Panadura. Another memorial took place at the Holy Cross Church in Hatton.
Meanwhile, protests were held in several places across the island today, demanding that those responsible for the 2019 Easter attacks be brought to book. A silent protest was held on either side of Armour Street, Colombo. A silent protest was also held opposite St. Mary's Church, Kegol, demanding justice for the victims of the Easter attacks. Residents of Morotua also engaged in a silent protest. This silent protest was held opposite Our Lady of Sorrows Church in Walana, Panadura. A silent protest was also held opposite the Horana Catholic Church.
On the 21st of April 2019, suicide bombers carried out the most brutal attack in recent Sri Lankan history, and that dark day will never be forgotten by Sri Lankans around the world. The bitter memories of the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks continue to haunt many in Sri Lanka and across the globe.
The 21st of April 2019 was just another Sunday, and the Catholic community proceed to churches to attend Easter Sunday Mass. An explosion rocked St. Sebastian's Church, Katua Pitia in Negombo. Thereafter, similar explosions were reported from several other locations. Explosion had rocked St. Anthony's Shrine, Kochikade, Zion Church, Batikalo, the Kingsbury Hotel, Colombo, Shangri-La Hotel, Colombo, Cinnamon Grand Hotel, Colombo, and the Tropical Inn in Devala. More than 250 Sri Lankans who visited the churches for Sunday Mass were killed. Another 38 foreign nationals also died in the terror attacks. More than 500 people were injured in the coordinated attacks. After the series of brutal attacks that shocked Sri Lanka as well as the world, many developments took place over time. A number of investigations were initiated and judgments were also given by the courts. Families are still suffering with the pain of losing their loved ones. They stress that their loved ones who were killed deserve justice. Justice must be done for the injured, for the children who knew nothing about what transpired on that tragic morning.
The Sinehase Yatrava, organized against fraud and corruption, ends today. The procession began its journey from Ratnapura, Nittambua, Chilau, Kurunagala and Kalutara.
One Senehasa Yatrava procession commenced its journey to Colombo following a program to obtain public signatures at the Godakavela town. The Senehasa Yatra from Kataragama commenced its journey to Colombo following a religious observance at the Kalutara Botri.
In more local news, Venerable Valawa Hanguna Vave Dhammaratana Thero has requested the government to declare Vesak, Poson and Asala festivals as essential religious events. He made this comment while attending an event at the historic Mihintale Saya ahead of Poson Poya.
The painting of the historic Mihintale Saya ahead of the national Poson Poya took place under the auspices of Venerable Valawa Hanguna Vave Dhammaratana Thero.
මේ වෘත්තීය සමිති සරසවි ශිෂ්‍ය සංඝ කියනේවාට කිරිපෙව්වේ මේ සියලුම දේශපාලන පක්ෂ.
The trade unions, student movements and so on were bred by the political parties. Today the trade unions and student bodies of those political parties are seen as terrorists. We did not raise them. If they are seen as terrorists, you are also held responsible for it. The President said he would make education an essential service. There are many essential services. Therefore, the State Poson Festival, Vesak Festival and Asala Festival that do not receive any support from the political authority should also be considered as essential religious events.
මේවා අත්‍යවශ්‍ය පූජාවන් හැටියට තමුන්නාන්සලාගේ දායකත්වය ලබා දෙමින් කවුරු හරි මේවට නිලධාරීන් පත් කරලා හොයලා බලලා කටයුතු කරන්නට ඕනේ.
The KRI Bima Sushi, a 3-mast sailing ship of the Indonesian Navy, is in Colombo on a goodwill visit. The Indonesian naval ship KRI Bima Sushi arrived at the port of Colombo on an official visit on Thursday. The visiting ship was welcomed by the Sri Lanka Navy in compliance with naval tradition. KRI Bima Sushi is a 112.2-meter long platform manned by a crew of 95, and she is commanded by Commander M. Sathilubes. The crew of KRI Bima Sushi is expected to visit tourist attractions in Sri Lanka during their stay. In addition, officer under trainees of Sri Lanka Navy will also visit the ship in Colombo. The ship is scheduled to depart the island on the 22nd of April, and on her departure she will host a training visit for 2 Sri Lanka Navy officer under trainees as well. Sudan's paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces has announced it will shortly begin a ceasefire despite continued heavy fighting with the army in the capital, Khartoum.
The RSF said in a statement it would observe a 72-hour ceasefire which should come into effect at 6 a.m. on Friday, which marks the beginning of the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Fitr. Khartoum was rocked by heavy shelling in the early hours of Friday, with the RSF accusing the army of staging a sweeping attack on the capital. There was no word from the army on whether it would observe a ceasefire.
That's a wrap of the lunchtime news. Join us again at 9 p.m. for primetime news on TV1.